Moore Street was the final headquarters of the 1916 Rising. As such, it is at the heart of the history of our people. There are, however, a ruling elite of developers, capitalists, and the politicians who are in their pockets who think that this is of no account. History and heritage stand in the way of profit and greed. They are about to demolish Moore Street, and they have powerful political backers in government and on the City Council.
Commemorate and demonstrate. It's from these buildings behind me that 93 years ago, Warwick Pearce and Nurse Elizabeth O'Farrell walked up this street to surrender and also, I suppose, into history. But in many respects it wasn't a surrender because it lit the fuse and we know what happened. And this actually should be marked down as the birthplace of the Irish Republic, this street, and these buildings behind us. And as I've said so many times before, what a sad state to see them the way they are. I think in any other European capital, and indeed beyond, this would be almost a national shrine, instead of what looks like a slum, certainly to me. It's a very special day, because we have with us today descendants of the executed leaders of 1916. These are private people, they don't have public lives as such, but it's a privilege and an honour to have them here today to support us in our aim to save the entire terrace, because that's what the last headquarters was, the entire terrace. 320 men, women and boys of the Fianna in all of these buildings. You can't demolish those buildings and leave four in the middle. We want the terrace, and it's not asking much when you look at what's opposite it. So I welcome the relatives of the 1916 leaders. I welcome the National Graves Association, who have been so ardent in their support. The Save 16 Moore Street Committee, of which I'm happy to be a PRO. We've had various other organisations, the Irish Georgian Society, Dublin City Centre Alliance, the unions, and various political parties. But I would emphasise that this is a non-party political event. We're here to commemorate the heroes of Easter Week. The demonstration will be a linking of arms, a symbolic linking of arms along this terrace. And it's to show, particularly Dublin City Council, that the people in Dublin care about this terrace and we don't want it demolished. And if we don't fight, it could be demolished. It is not safe. There is still people who think that this building behind me, the three buildings with it and the rest are safe. No. I'm bold to try and stop that extraordinary, grotesque development they plan to put here. And we will fight, and we will do our best to stop it. But the developer's still not happy with getting most of the street. He wants to build on the National Monument and demolish the National Monument. It's shameful that this scheme has ever got this far. City fathers in other cities would have stopped this. They haven't. So it's down to us, and I thank you for being here, and welcome to you all. Shortly afterwards, I got orders from Sean McDermott to provide a white flag. He first hung one out of the house to ensure me from being fired on. I left by the house, Gorman's, 15 Moore Street, about 12:45 p.m. on Saturday the 29th. With a verbal message from Commandant Pearce to the commander of the British forces, to the effect that he wished to treat with them. I waved the small white flag which I carried, and the military ceased firing and called me up to the barrier which was across the top of Moore Street into Parnell Street. As I passed up Moore Street, I saw at the corner of Sackville Lane the O'Rahilly's hat and a revolver lying on the ground. I thought he had got into some house. I gave my message to the officer in charge and he asked me how many girls were down there. I said 3. He said, take my advice and go down again and bring the other 2 girls out of it. He was about putting me back again through the barrier when he changed his mind and said, however, you had better wait. I suppose this will have to be reported. And then he sent another officer with me up Parnell Street towards the Parnell statue. He sent into one of the houses there, I think it was number 70, for someone in command. The officer in command then came out. I said, the Commandant of the Irish Republican Army wishes to treat with the Commandant of the British forces in Ireland. He replied, the Irish Republican Army? The Sinn Féiners, you mean? I replied, the Irish Republican Army they call themselves, and I think that a very good name too. Will Pearce be able to be moved on a stretcher? Commandant Pearce doesn't need a stretcher. Pearce does need a stretcher, madam. Commandant Pearce doesn't need a stretcher. The officer as ordered proceeded to cut the red cross off my arm, also off the front of my apron, and then took me over to the hall of the National Bank on the corner of Parnell Street and Cavendish Road. I've seen photographs of the barricade. It seemed to be made out of railway sleepers, machine guns, guns on it. This was like a sniper's alley. Small lady, stick and a white flag. She walks up the street.
Nick up there, everything. It's not full. Okay, sorry.
It's a wonderful thing to have the relatives of them here today. We have Eamon Kent's great nephew, Eamon Kent. We have 3 members of the McDonough family. We have a member of the Clark Daly family. And we have, of course, James Connolly's great-grandson and his great-great-grandson. And various other people here are descendants of the GPO garrison and have other connections. And I'm very pleased you turned up today and sit with us and prove to the planners of this city and the developers that it's more than just a handful of people who care about this, I suppose, really what I would call a sacred site in many respects. Thank you very much for your time.